Well, greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Newsman Weekly Podcast, episode number 23. Thanks again to local country singer Luke Watson for crafting this show's theme song. Folks, we are 2 days away from Thanksgiving, the day that officially launches the holiday season. I know many of you put up Christmas trees the day after Halloween. Well, that ain't me. When you get to be my age, you take the holidays as they come, and you celebrate each one in turn. I am kind of disappointed many people these days skip Thanksgiving. Not happening with me. I grew up in a family where gravy was considered a beverage. We ain't skipping Thanksgiving. No ho, ho, ho until I'm stuffed with turkey and dressing.
Goodness. No one's skipping Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Some people just like to have Thanksgiving with Christmas decorations up.
No.
It makes it more festive.
No, it's not. You're shortchanging Thanksgiving, and I'm not here for that. We can argue about that in a minute, but I am once again today joined by Zac Hiser, the executive producer of the Newsman Weekly, and also the man who wants to forget Thanksgiving. Welcome back, Zac. How was your weekend? Tell me you spent the entire weekend putting up Christmas decorations.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Carl. Happy holidays.
Don't Merry Christmas
'Tis the season. Yeah, my weekend was good. We have decorated for Christmas. We had a Friendsgiving on Saturday. I cooked a turkey.
That's nice. How did you cook it?
In the oven.
Okay, you didn't deep fry it?
No, I didn't deep fry it. It was the first time, honestly, I've done the whole process by myself, and it turned out pretty damn good.
Nice.
So I'm proud of myself.
Guess what you can look forward to from now on?
What?
Making Thanksgiving dinner now that you've proven you can do it by yourself.
I broke the seal.
You know, the best advice I ever got, even though I didn't follow it before I got married back in 1985, was never wash a dish. Because once you wash one, you're washing them all.
I'm afraid times have changed.
Yeah, the best investment I ever made was buying a dishwasher, so it didn't have to be me anymore. But
I also saw Wicked this weekend.
Okay, the movie?
The movie.
Yeah. How was it?
It was pretty iconic.
Yeah.
I did see the play several years ago, and it was good, and it's always been kind of like one of my wife's favorites. So, but the movie was just epic. It was like they really filled a lot of gaps and like made it into this. It was almost 3 hours.
3 hours.
Yeah. We took the kids too.
Does it have like the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion and all that stuff?
There are maybe some like Easter eggs for that.
Okay.
But there's going to be
this is like a prequel to The Wizard of Oz.
It is, and there's going to be a part 2 to this Wicked. They actually, about halfway through what the play would be, they, cut it and to be continued.
So they took the musical, made it 3 hours, and still only did like half of it.
Yeah.
Somebody needs an editor.
Yeah.
All right.
But it was really good. Visually, is stunning, and the songs were pretty cool. So.
All right. Also back with us today is Knox Page's reporter Grant Ritchey, the show's official videographer. I literally am on vacation. You're seeing me talk while I'm on vacation. Ritchey was going to fill in for me today as the host of the show, but Hiser called me at home and said that Ritchey had a plan to talk about lavender for 2 hours based upon his trip to Washington. And I said, guys, just stop. I'll be there in a minute. Don't do this. So here I am on vacation. Ritchey, how was your weekend? I see the boys from Tough Street won again.
They're rolling. Let me tell you what.
But you're not riding the train with them. I haven't seen you on the sidelines down there on Tough Street.
It's not tough enough.
Yeah, I'll let Kurt write those stories. Probably do a bit better justice than me, but putting it lightly, And if I were to host this podcast, I'll be standing on the shoulders of giants. So.
Oh, look at this. Hey, you know what? You can stay another week. There you go. Well, folks, we're going to be joined in a few minutes by two of the most interesting people I know, Duncan and Carmone Macfarlane, two of the founders and owners of the Phoenix Brewing Company here in Mansfield. They got a great story to tell, and we're going to get into all of it, or at least a lot of it. That discussion's coming up in just a bit, but first let's get to some news. Multiple law enforcement agencies are investigating the death of 16-year-old Trenton Isaac of Mansfield. Teenager was reported missing November 12th. His body was found November 15th, about 100 miles from here, in a wooded area in Harrison County near the village of Cadiz. His body was found by an off-duty Ohio Department of Natural Resources officer who was preparing for deer hunting. And it's not a good story, but...
Well, can you tell the listeners about your little adventure to Harrison County?
Well, I was trying to get some information, and it's not always easy to get people to talk to you on the phone who you don't know and they don't know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to live and work in Guernsey County and Muskingum County. My grandpa had a dairy farm in northern Guernsey County, almost into Tuscarawas County. So I'm familiar with the area down there. I covered a lot of high school sports in the Inter-Valley Conference.
Closer to Pittsburgh than it is Mansfield, right?
It's like a half hour from Wheeling, West Virginia.
Okay, wow.
So I didn't trust that I was going to get the information I wanted over the phone. So I checked with folks around here, and I said, you know what? I'm going to Harrison County. And I got in my car, and I drove to the sheriff's office. And the sheriff's name was Ronald Myers, a.k.a. Joe, who, by the way, he's been with that department for 39 years, the last 16 as sheriff, and he's retiring at the end of December. So I sat down with him and his replacement, currently a captain who is going to become the sheriff come January. His name is Mark Tuville. He's a captain right now. And the first thing they said is, sorry, you drove a long way for us to tell you we got nothing. We can't tell you anything. And as a reporter, when somebody says that right from the outset, you can take that one of two ways. You can close your notebook and say thanks anyway and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can say, well, hey, I'm already here. Let's just start talking. And if there's stuff that you feel like, can be disclosed along the way as we go, we'll go ahead and do that.
That's incredible. So how did you finesse that? Is that what you said exactly?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much. I said, I was already sitting down,
mm-hmm.
and I said, well, let's just talk. And we talked a little bit about my grandpa's dairy farm. I talked about fishing and hunting down in that part of the neck of the woods in Ohio. We talked a little Caddies football. We talked about some basketball players that came out of the Inter-Valley Conference over the years, and 35 minutes later, I had more information than I've seen reported elsewhere. So it turned into a worthwhile trip, and I think we're able to tell a decent story. But yeah, it's a tragedy what's happened to this young man. But sometimes as a reporter, and Richie, this is something to put in the back of your notebook, it's a lot harder to say no comment when you're looking at somebody across the table than it is over the phone.
Yeah, I agree.
So don't hesitate to go do that when you have the chance.
So who's going to be investigating this? Like the county?
It's going to be the Harrison County Sheriff's Office, Mansfield Police, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, multiple agencies.
And his body was, taken across multiple counties, right?
Yeah.
So
if it turns out the way law enforcement speculating, he was probably killed in Mansfield.
But we don't know yet.
Don't know that for certain. All we know is where the body was found, and apparently was dumped or placed or taken there. When I talked to the sheriff, he did not believe that homicide had occurred in his county. So yeah, he talked about, it's 5 or 6 counties along the way, and there's not a good way to get to Harrison County from here. You take 30 over to Worcester. You take 250, which is largely a 2-lane road, to I-77. You go south on I-77 for a few miles, and then you take the 250 exit. And at some point, as you get into the foothills of Appalachia, it becomes curvy, and you go by Tappan Lake, and there's a lot of places to get lost. And when somebody says rural Harrison County, that's redundant. Because Harrison County, Cadiz is the county seat. It's got about 3,000 people. Okay. And all of Harrison County, I think, is under 15,000.
Wow.
This is not
So it's like if Lucas was the county seat of Richland County.
That's exactly right. And I don't know if Lucas is even 3,000 or not. Right. But yeah, it is not a. And there's pretty much a news desert down there. I talked to some folks in restaurants while I was down there, and they hadn't heard anything about it. And one older guy who's a retired coal miner from far eastern Ohio said, yeah, we don't get a lot of homicide, but it seems like people want to bring them and dump them here.
Oh, wow.
So they've had a few of those over the years.
So will you be keeping tabs on this? Is
You
the
know,
sheriff coming to your Thanksgiving dinner?
I don't think the sheriff's coming this way, but yeah, I think he and I will talk again before this is all done, and obviously talking to Mansfield Police as well. But
Yeah.
Other news, Richland County Land Bank was awarded $1.7 million in total grants last week from the state, including another $1 million for the ongoing Westinghouse demolition and remediation project. Those grants also include $657,000 to finally handle the Broadway and Main Street project in Shelby to tear down and remediate a building there that's kind of been known as the city's biggest eyesore for years. Andy McGinty, the chief deputy in the Richland County Treasurer's Office and an executive committee member on the Land Bank board, said Wednesday the additional Westinghouse money will help finish the demolition, complete any needed site remediation, and also help to install a stormwater control system.
All right.
There's some water features that remain down there. I saw several geese when I went down there to take pictures. And
Did you interview them?
they kept their distance. They quacked no comment,
Yeah.
and it was awfully
Smart.
muddy. So
Typical.
I will tell you this. I did some quick research because do like to be precise when I'm writing, not so much when I'm talking. But if there are geese that are flying, they're a flock of geese.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a group of geese that are on the ground, it is a gaggle.
Okay.
So I did use the word gaggle in my story because they were
They were on the ground.
they were web-footing it around. But speaking of Westinghouse, McGinty said R&D Excavating of Crestline, which has been working on this for a couple of years, hopes to have the final concrete pit removed and the entire site prepped for grass and straw by the end of the year.
All right.
lot
Thanks
of
to
it's-
wine.
A lot of it's green grass already, but
And
yeah.
so this whole cleanup of Westinghouse has probably gone better than, or is as good as like you would have expected, right? I mean, there was some stuff about the EPA and
well, I mean, they haven't tested every area
Okay.
yet to find out what exactly might be in the soil. That's the thing about it. You're talking the building itself coming down, the A building, what used to be the A building, was easily the easiest part of this whole process.
okay.
13 acres of concrete being ripped up. I don't think nobody knew what exactly was under that concrete, but I don't think anybody had any idea that there were this many pits and other stuff that have been left behind by companies over the years. It's kind of like when Westinghouse came in. They didn't want to dig all that stuff up. They just put
Just buried
concrete
it.
right over top of it and set up their
Yeah.
own operation.
Yeah.
So, I've talked to the guys from R&D a few times since the process started, and it's like, awful lot of work here.
But you're gonna, you can't retire until we see the whole Westinghouse project through. So
well, and the nice thing is how often do you have what could be 14 acres of completely developable? Say that real quick, Richie. Developable.
Developable.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I can always count on you. When you can have 14 acres in downtown that are open
right.
for redevelopment, so
Right.
this is kind of a once in a lifetime
It
kind
is.
of thing. A ribbon was cut Thursday to open a new clerk of court's office and a meeting space for the prosecutor's grand jury sessions. The opening of the new offices is just the beginning of a building-wide renovation project that will also include the construction of a new fourth courtroom for the Common Pleas Court General Division and new offices for the aforementioned Richland County Land Bank, as well as renovated restrooms on all 5 floors and common areas. I got to be honest, when I took a quick tour before the ribbon cutting, I've never, in 40 plus years of doing this, been invited to tour a bathroom and to take pictures in a bathroom.
How was the bathroom?
It's just spectacular. Yeah, it's
Nice and roomy. And,
yeah. Compared to the old bathrooms that have been there since the building was built back in the 70s, it's a big
For
improvement.
ribbon cutting for a toilet.
Well, yeah, just part of it, but no,
Right,
it's
no, I
it's a really nice clerk of court's office now. It's great that the prosecutor's office has a dedicated space to do grand jury sessions. So yeah, congratulations to the folks there. Commissioners are largely paying for all these renovations through American Rescue Plan Act funds, though some money from their capital funds will also be expended in the second and third parts of these projects.
Shout out Tony Vero spending money.
Yeah, Tony Vero, Cliff Mears, Daryl Banks, everybody's spending some ARPA because guess what? You got about another.
You gotta spend it.
You got another month.
Use it or lose it.
Use it or lose it. And once that's all done, folks, I'm going to do as deep an accounting dive as I care to do to explain to you where all the money went in the last 2 or 3 years.
If they can't find a thing to use it on, just send checks out in the mail to the great citizens of Mansfield.
Yeah, I think the U.S. Treasury Department, which wrote the rules for this, might frown.
They
on
won't
that.
find out until the money's spent.
All right, one other thing to touch on. 2 area high school football teams are going to play Friday night in a Division VII state semifinal game at Shelby High School in the Whippet Athletic Complex. 12-2 Danville will come up from Tough Street out of Knox County.
The Blue Devils
Will take on 13-1 Hillsdale from Ashland County, with the winner advancing to the state championship game over in Canton against either Maria Stein Marion Local. Some folks might remember they're the team that defeated Lucas back in 2019. Marion Local has won 62 games in a row.
Oh my God.
So, but they're playing.
That's not an error.
No,
you
it's
didn't
it's
misspeak
62
there.
games in a row.
They have not lost since
Obviously they play 16 games a year because they just win state title after state title. So, but they are 14-0. They're playing Columbus Grove, which is also 14-0, and the winners of those 2 games will meet over in Canton on Friday, December 6th at 10:30 in the morning. And if ever there's a time that I don't want to be playing high school football, it's at 10:30 in the morning.
Why do they have it so early?
what?
It's like that's not like football time.
Yeah, what is that about?
Because they have to play 7 games, 7 championship games in one stadium
Okay.
in the space of about, they start Thursday night, I think.
They can't do it
and you
over
gotta
2
be done.
days?
Well, yeah, they do, but I mean, you play like 1 game Thursday night, 3 games Friday, 3 games Saturday.
To spread them out at different stadiums. I mean,
Well, I mean, they used to. I mean, a few years ago, they alternated. They play games in Akron and some in, Canton and some in Massillon. And you literally had to drive back and forth if you were covering the games because they play 1 game here. The next game would start an hour later over in Massillon. And it's a pain from a coverage standpoint.
I can
but
see that.
they're all in one place, and it's just going to be 10:30 in the morning, so you just got to.
These kids need to be in school, though.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure that was always a priority for you when you were matriculating through
Absolutely.
Lexington. I need to be in class. Hey, speaking of football, Mansfield will also host another game. It'll be a Division I state semifinal game Friday night at Arlen Field. 9-5 Lakewood St. Ed will take on 12-2 Olentangy Liberty, which is also 12-2, and their winner will advance to the Division I state championship game also over in Canton. All right, folks, that's enough news for now. Let's take a quick break. In a few minutes, we'll be joined by Carmone and Duncan Macfarlane from the Phoenix Brewing Company. Please stay with us here at the Newsman Weekly Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Newsman Weekly Podcast, and I'll just make that same mistake over and over again all morning. Joining me now are Duncan and Carmone Macfarlane. Duncan is the co-owner and head brewer at the Phoenix Brewing Company. His wife, Carmone, is the head of creative and marketing at the same place, the Phoenix Brewing Company. Good morning to both of you, and thanks for coming in so damn early in the morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Especially early in the morning for folks who often work late at night, so I appreciate you guys coming in. Let's start with a domestic question. When and where did the two of you meet, and was it actually in a bar?
Silence. She's gonna,
Okay, I really didn't think this was going to be the toughest question I had today, but I mean, is there something that we need to know here?
We met in Bowling Green in 1993, and we did meet at Uptown Downtown, which was the happening place in Bowling Green at that time. So yeah, we were both going to Bowling Green State University. He was in his last year, and I was in my second junior year.
I was a fifth-year senior.
Okay, so
first junior year. Excuse me.
Both of you were having a good time, and it just took a while to kind of matriculate through through all the academia?
I transferred from Ohio State to Bowling Green, so when I transferred, I lost a lot of credits. So we often say that my junior year was, I have 2 junior years, just because I had to make up certain credits for graduation. At that time, Ohio State was on quarters, Bowling Green was on semesters, and things didn't mesh well with that transition.
I just figured that Bowling Green was tougher academically, so you just had to retake classes because they didn't want to count what was being taught at Ohio State.
Tough for me, I guess. I kind of cruised and got my paperwork, so we're good there.
Well, very good. Now, both of you started out doing something far different than owning and operating a craft brewery. What did you used to do, and how did you make the decision to kind of change career paths here?
Well, I graduated Bowling Green, as we said, in environmental science. So for about 20 years, I worked in that arena. So I was mainly laboratory work for wastewater and drinking water for a couple different companies. That was laboratory, field work, that sort of thing. Pretty much, just hanging out in a lab. I had fun with coworkers. I was usually the one that would be, raising hell. And everybody else was pretty much, just doing their thing. So it was a good career, 20 years doing that.
Yeah. What about you, Carmen?
I spent 20 years in education. I taught visual arts, and I absolutely loved it. And it just was an opportunity for a change, and you just get one ride. So it's kind of nice to try something different and go in a different direction. Yeah, I had great students. I had great experiences, and this has been fantastic as well.
Well, very good. Now, Duncan, I know you started out in this as kind of a homebrew guy. So talk a little bit about how you got started in the homebrew business or operations, and what's the key to making a great homebrew when it comes to craft beers?
Yes, so Carmen got me a homebrew kit in 1999. So that's kind of when I started. I think I saw homebrew kits like at Walmart. You would see a box with beer on it, and you can make it at home. So that's kind of...
I got it at Sears, though.
Sears,
okay.
A
A Sears homebrew kit.
It was a Mr. Beer kit.
Oh,
right.
Rest in peace, Sears.
And that kind of started at Bowling Green. When we go to parties, everybody be drinking the same beer, and I'd always get some crappy beer that I would, you get at the end of the aisle.
Right.
I put it in the cooler, nobody would drink it. So I kind of learned that if I just got a taste for different kinds of beers early on. So that's kind of why I got into that, I guess. So then I started drinking good beer. Good craft beer started coming around in the 90s. Second part of your question, how did I get into, going into owning a brewery? So I homebrewed before we opened, about 12, 13, 14 years. And started doing, making beers for parties and birthday parties. I can't remember all that we did that. So that's kind of how I started making beer for people. Other than myself and ourselves.
People started asking him to make beer for different things, and they liked what he did. He was not using the Mr. Beer kit at that time either.
Oh, he had graduated from Mr. Beer.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny because when he decided he really wanted to make beer at home, we were living in Columbus, and I was a substitute teacher at the time, and he was working for an environmental company down there, and he came in and said, I really want to do this, but I don't want to use the Mr. Beer kit. He's like, I'd like to buy some real equipment and start using some real, my own ingredients. And so he literally had a plan of how long it was going to take to buy all of the equipment that he wanted for home, and the importance of which pieces and which ones had to come first. And I would say by the end of the first year, he was brewing all grain batches, and he was harvesting yeast, and part of that was easy because of where he was working the yeast cultures and all of that stuff. So that was kind of cool.
Laboratory work, sort of.
I was going to say chemistry is probably a good equivalent to have, a good background to have when it comes to mixing stuff together. What was the first beer you ever made, Duncan?
First one I remember. That's a good question. Other than Mr. Beer, which I only did a couple, like she said, just a month or two.
What actually comes in a Mr. Beer kit, or at least it came in at 1993?
You get cans of syrup. You get a little plastic jug to ferment in, and a little bubbler on top. Maybe a book that explains what you're doing, and you're just basically working in the kitchen and then filling this little jug. and letting it bubble. I put it next to the heater vent, thinking the yeast needed to be warm, but you don't do that because it kind of foamed over. So I didn't know what I was doing, obviously. So,
Carmen, you had to be excited when the beer foamed over by the heater. That had to be an exciting thing to see take place.
No.
All right, let's switch for just a second now. Carmen, I think you were teaching in high school, correct? Over in Ashland, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
I was teaching in high school.
Now, how do those skills translate, or how did you make them translate into marketing a brewing company? And when did you make the decision to say, you know what, I need to, because I know you were split in time initially.
I was. It came down to I loved both jobs. I loved being able to do both things, and the idea of doing something a little different was actually really scary to think about it, because and also the idea of working with Duncan every day was really kind of a scary thing, because not because of him, but because you're working with the person that you're married to, the person
Right.
that you're with already in the evenings, and most of the time we don't see each other at work. I often work from home, or in the office, but the skills that kind of transfer, their communication skills, the design and the graphic skills, education. There are a lot of educators that have transitioned into craft beer, into this industry. And I think for all of us, we're used to writing press releases. We're used to writing reports, dealing with the public, small group settings, large group settings, and, just people skills in general.
Because you've designed, I think, I'm saying this blindly, I may be completely wrong, but I think you've designed most of the cans that you guys have created over the years. Am I correct, or am I way off on that?
No, I have.
Okay. Well, we're going to get back to that in just a minute. But all right, so 2014, a decade ago, Duncan, you partnered with Scott Cardwell and Steve Zigmund to open the Phoenix in a site that used to be a mortuary and a funeral home. How did that process work? How did you happen to partner with those guys, and what were you guys thinking?
well, we kind of met. I think. Well, we knew Steve earlier on through the Playhouse. So Carmen was doing some theater at the Playhouse.
And doing it very well, and she needs to go
That's
back
right.
and do
Carl,
some
you
more.
did the same.
Thank
That's
you.
right. I made the connection there quickly. So we met Zig there, I guess, and so we knew him. And then Scott, we met through education, some common friends through teaching.
Our friends, Rich and Krista Wazowski. Rich taught at the high school with me and took us over to the Cardwells one night. Or did we meet him at Rich's house, or did we meet him at the Cardwells?
I'm not sure.
One of the two places. It was a adult gathering, and we kind of met up that way. And Scott had questions about homebrewing, and Duncan and Margot worked on getting Scott started with homebrewing himself. So
That's how this started. Then we started. Scott was planting the seed as far as potentially opening a brewery. There was none at the time.
Right, there were no home breweries becoming craft breweries in Mansfield at that
and
time.
we wanted a craft brewery. I mean, because I remember the Wooden Pony in the '90s. A lot of people do in the area, and we wanted it downtown. I didn't necessarily want to own a brewery. I was in my career, but the conversation led to, let's find a building, let's find a plan, and see where it goes. So we had discussions about the potential of opening in town. So that's kind of how it started, just talking. I would be the brewer. Scott would be, he was in the restaurant business when he was in the Carolinas, North or South Carolina. So he had the management part, and Zig owned he worked for POS system. There was some tools there we had, and different people that potentially we could work.
So they show you a building, and they tell you probably, this used to be a mortuary and a funeral home, and your eyes had to light up and say, "Yep, that's where I want to open a brewery inside of a place where people used to lay dead."
That's exactly how it was. We had flashlights with Mr. Ferniak. I think we met with him to see buildings downtown. John Ferniak.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I think I have a place for you. So we just took flashlights and looked at this old, dilapidated building that needed a lot of work. And as soon as I saw it, I knew it was going to work.
What did you see in it when you looked at it with a flashlight that said, yeah, this is the place?
Location, it was near where everything was going on downtown, near the Carousel District. It was on the edge. It wasn't quite in the nicer part of downtown, but the location was good. The basement had high ceilings, concrete floor. I was imagining tanks, imagining the chapel area, the chapel space as a tap room. It just was filling in pretty quickly.
Now, Carmen, what did you think when were you with these guys when they first looked at it, or did he come home and say, wait till you see this funeral home I just saw?
We went to some of the different buildings, but Duncan came back and said, you need to come see this one. And from the conversations, they really didn't expect any of us to say this is the building when we walked into it. It was gorgeous. I mean, it was a hot mess, but it was gorgeous. It had these tall ceilings. It had all of these windows with the possibility of light coming through, and then upstairs that glorious window, that just beautiful window, was just perfect. Like when you walked in there, you knew that this is something that could become something new.
Yeah, and the irony was that John Verniak had, anytime a bar closed downtown, he would purchase the building so that it wouldn't be a bar. So there was some irony there, and we knew that. But he seemed excited pretty early on at the idea of a gathering place, a different type of place than was downtown in the 70s and 80s. So
yeah, part of
there's
that
some
is,
irony with who allowed who liked the idea.
Yeah, and I have no doubt, because I remember when they were deciding to build the carousel back in 1990. A lot of things needed to be displaced from the downtown, massage parlors and things like that, and maybe some not so nice bars. So yeah, once did you have any trouble convincing him, saying, you know what, we're not going to be your typical kind of bar. We've got something different in mind. Did that conversation take place?
Yeah, definitely. And he actually he told us that not many years before that there was a brewery, actually a Schmidt's sausage house in Columbus was trying to start a brewery, and they had actually looked at it, and things fell through at the last minute. So he'd actually had been approached before by a brewery. So, and we did explain that we were trying to get people, in a social place, talk, just have somewhat family friendly, and yes, there was craft beer, but it could be done in a good way and good for the community.
Because there's other places have opened around here since then, up in Shelby and some other places that have opened some craft breweries. But you guys were kind of the OGs. You were the first kids on the block, so to speak. Have some of these other places that have kind of opened since then, do they come and talk to you guys and say, hey, how best do we do this kind of thing?
I think our industry is one that it's very collaborative, and we have had them come in and talk, and we're very lucky to be able to ask other parts of our industry for help or questions if we need them. When we first opened, before we even opened, we were invited to come brew with, another brewery and kind of see what that process was like on their system. They came in, they welcomed us, they said, hey, we're so excited you're coming. Would you love to come over, and, we'd love to have you come over and kind of hang out with us for a day and brew with us. And it was really just one of the most eye-opening experiences because, not every industry is like that. And craft beer in Ohio is one that we want to see everybody succeed. It's good for all of us. And so we have, we've talked with a lot of other breweries and not just in the area, and we've gone to other breweries and worked with them and found out information.
Yeah, I had not seen, I guess it was when my youngest son was living in Fort Collins out in Colorado, and we went out to visit him shortly after he moved out there. And I had never seen so many craft breweries in my life in one city. And I remember thinking, this is crazy. And then, not long after that, you guys are doing your thing. And I'm like, this is Because when I talk to the folks out in Fort Collins, and most of those folks get along just as well. I mean, there seems to be a compatibility, or at least shared interest in seeing each other succeed out there.
It's the same in Ohio. And we did go to Fort Collins, and we did go through Denver, and we met with lots of breweries. Our friend that has a butcher shop out there, Russ Robinson, he had us come out, and Duncan's brother lived out there at the time too. And we went to, brewery after brewery, and they were all so welcoming. Hey, if you guys ever need anything, here's our business card. Give us a call. Reach out to me. It's the same here. You want to see people do well. You want to make sure that your industry is thriving, and you want to make sure that people that need anything you just want them to do well. It's a fun business to be in. It's craft beer.
Right.
It's camaraderie and it's collaboration, and you often see lots of breweries doing collaboration beers and working with other organizations, not just other breweries, and part of that has to do with just the nature of the business.
Now, as someone who came of age in the 70s and 80s, craft beer in Southeast Ohio, for example, was not something that was readily available, if at all. I remember you were talking about the beers at the bottom of the cooler that nobody wanted to drink. There was a beer that was made in Columbus at the time, early 80s. I believe it was called Top Hat.
I've had it.
Yeah, and Top Hat is the only beer I've ever drank where you go from sober to hungover with no buzz anywhere in the middle. I mean, you're sitting there drinking it, and you realize it's like your sixth one, and all of a sudden your head hurts and you don't feel well.
I have stories with Top Hat. Yeah, they had returnable bottles
Mm-hmm.
when I was in Bowling Green.
Yeah.
And you had to save the bottles, and I think I got $7 back every time.
They should give you a full refund for drinking that stuff. It was just a bad beer.
Yeah. Iron City and Top Hat. I think Top Hat was made in Cincinnati at the time, and Iron City out of
Pittsburgh, yeah. IC Light. Now there was a
yeah. Nobody would touch that.
No.
I would take it to a party, and no, it's all mine.
I mean, there were IC Light, Hudipole or Shingling or Little Kings were a big.
Hootie.
Yep. And what was the other one? There was one out of Stroh's. We used to call it Detroit City River Water.
Okay.
I mean, that was not a very good beer, but Duncan, how do you?
J.W. Dundee, Honey Brown.
Oh, yeah. Now you're hurting me. How do you go from Mr. Beer, where you're like filling up a little jug and putting yeast in it and putting it by a heater, to now what are, if folks go down and visit your establishment, those are some pretty massive tanks. Not only the financial investment, but how do you mentally make that connection between I'm going to brew a little thing here and now I'm brewing this really big thing over here?
Yeah, that wasn't factored in. It was like, let's buy the equipment, let's get rocking and rolling, and we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how it is. You get the tanks, you see the equipment, and you get nervous. You're like, okay, this is we'll have, but you need a good architect, you need good plumbers, you need good electricians. You tell them what you need. A lot of times I didn't know what I needed, so I said, well, let's look at the equipment and let's work this out. Where the chimney stacks, the ventilation stacks need to go. So that was certainly a process. Scaling up wasn't too. I didn't get too nervous about that. A lot of people are, how do you scale up? And you just do it linear, and if you don't hit your numbers, you do better the next time, so it's still going to be beer and it's still going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't too big a deal. And I did get a system. Original pilot system is a manual system, so you physically have to stir, not a lot of moving parts, so it kind of fit my eye as a home brewer.
Now, one of the things that I've noticed over the years, you guys have, I think, done it the right way. Not that I have any business acumen at all, but you've kind of built things slowly. You had the tap room, you had the kind of the open area next to it where people could sit. Then you opened the beer garden on the other side where you could have more people could sit outside, assuming it's not Ohio and 15 degrees outside. But a year or so ago, you opened, I believe, the Spirit Room upstairs, which is a whole different venture, and you finally got to use that window, Carmen, that you enjoyed so much when you first saw the building. How important was it to grow at a pace that made really good business sense for you guys?
Well, I think, and none of us had a lot of business experience, so we didn't want to, invest a ton. We didn't want to go into debt, more than we needed to. So it made sense to kind of ride the fence of, okay, we need to invest in equipment, and personnel, and make the tap room nice and in furniture. But same time, grow slowly, add tanks as we were bringing in revenue, as we could. Things break down, coolers break down, glycol. You're constantly a lot of moving parts, so you got to make sure those are taken care of. But we did invest, but yeah, slowly. We put in 2 tanks to start. We added a couple more within the first year, and just as more people were finding out about us, more people were coming in. And that was not everybody knew who we were to begin with, which is how it is in any business. So.
I noticed, not noticed, but it must have been less than fun. 5 or 6 years into your business, this little pandemic comes sweeping across the country, and it really impacts bars, restaurants, things like that, probably more so than most other kinds of industry. How did you guys weather it, and how crucial was it that you have kind of a devoted fan base out there by that point who was willing to come in and get their stuff to go and kind of work with you guys through the whole process?
Yeah, we all had to work together on that. There was some good things that we were in good position. A lot of our we had already started to can, and some of our cans were we were using a mobile canner before the pandemic. So we were actually in that realm. We were selling, I think, cans at the Brown Stadium at the time, and
you guys were selling Danger City at Brown Stadium, right?
For
yeah,
a few years, yeah. So we had been open a few years, so we kind of had a way to pivot to cans and then delivery off-site, trimming our staff temporarily. It was not easy, but I think we were able to get off-site sales because that had to stop. We had to close the tap room, so there's nobody coming in to buy pints. So you have to have growlers, cans, and anything you want to add to that?
We were really lucky. And like you said, we had a great fan base coming in and supporting us. We sat there on that Sunday night, and 2 of our staff members got engaged that night. So it was really kind of cool. And then there's this announcement maybe 5 minutes later that right before St. Patrick's Day, where we've already ramped up, we have all this extra beer, all this extra liquor, that the industry would everything was shutting down. We were really lucky because the Ohio Craft Brewers Association worked very hard to make sure that all breweries had what they needed to kind of survive that and give advice, and they were on the front lines legislatively, making sure that things like permit expansions were available, letting us be able to sell things to go, letting us still keep our facilities open for production, and just kind of providing guidance for us. So between those 2 things, we're really lucky. We had a somewhat operational model of sales immediately the next day, and selling alcohol online is not like selling a T-shirt online. It's difficult because you have to. A lot of servers will not let you do that. They'll shut down your whole website if you're selling something and there's very fine print. And there were several breweries, and a couple in Ohio that had that happen to them. So we set up one method, and then we took some time to research a little bit. And by the next week, we had a little different model running for sales. And then, like Duncan said, we had delivery staff. We had a core group of staff that were out delivering beer to people, dropping it off on doorsteps, waiting for signatures, waiting for ID checks, and it was an experience.
Yes, I wasn't making beer because we had enough stock, so I was out doing deliveries, which I had time to do because I didn't need to make anymore, at least for a while. So we were trying to sell what we had. Yep.
Yeah, we had really ramped up for the coming out of January and February. March is usually the month where most breweries are starting to really put forth a lot of new beers and a lot of new products, and we were full. We were ready to sell all of it.
Are you still able to do beer delivery and carryouts, or was that like a pandemic thing only?
We shut down the online sales before the end of that year. Just something that it's hard to maintain.
Yeah. Okay.
You have to have. At that time we had dedicated hours to kind of manage that.
Sure.
You would get up the next morning, pull all the orders, pack everything, and then ship it out. And sometimes it's difficult when you're not, on that same kind of a schedule.
Yeah, more people just weren't leaving their house, and they still wanted beers. So now they don't stay home. They want to come in. And,
makes sense.
Well, as someone who purchased his share of growlers during that time, I'm grateful that you guys found a way to get through that. And I know you guys have probably get this question 2 or 3 times at least if I get my computer to go back to working. Is there any concern that the craft beer industry and the phenomenal growth that you've seen over the last few years could be reaching a saturation point? I mean, are there enough? Are there too many breweries right now? And what are your thoughts on that? And is part of that why you guys kind of also decided to open that spirit room last year? Kind of a continue look for ways to grow the business?
I don't think that craft beer is reaching a saturation point, but I do think that the market trends have changed quite a bit, especially since that first year. The second year, it's just like any business. There's a trend right now where there's a lot of younger individuals and even some older individuals who are choosing to go more non-alcoholic. The sober curious movement is large, and so is trying out different cocktails. The ready to drink market really expanded in the last 2 years, and opening the spirit room, and Duncan can talk more about that as well, is something to kind of diversify and give our community something different other than just the craft beer that we offer. It is nice because it brings in different people from different parts of the state, and it brings in different people at different times of the day and different times of the week. But we also have expanded some of our other offerings in-house. Our cocktails downstairs in the tap room are different. There's more handcrafted cocktails downstairs. We have a wide variety of non-alcoholic products.
The diversity of what we sell has, the way I think of it, you get a group of people wanting to go out. There's family in town or whatever it is, and they go out. If there's say 8 people, and not everybody drinks craft beer in that group. But what else do we have? Are we going to get those 8 people, or we're not going to get anybody? So if we have, wine drinkers, craft drinkers, cocktail drinkers, bourbon drinkers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have all that. So, potentially we get that whole group in versus if we just had craft beer. It's getting a little tougher with that model. Yeah. So
what is your best-selling all-time beer, and why do you think it's so popular?
You want to?
We have 3.
Okay, what are those 3?
But we'll start with the top one is probably the Redemption IPA.
There you have it, folks, because that's my go-to. Right
there you have it, the correct answer.
That's the good answer. You may stay.
Right.
Whatever
Carl likes. No,
whatever
anyway.
Carl likes. No, Redemption IPA is probably one of our top sellers. Early on, it came out of the gate kind of strong. There was a competition. The King of Ohio, and it got 3rd place in a competition. I think the second year we were open, which was really exciting. And the second runner-up would be the Ferryman Oatmeal Milk Stout, and I would say those 2 are actually probably neck and neck, followed with the Krampus right behind it.
Krampus Candy is probably it's our biggest seller in cans, 4-packs to go.
Now those are 3 just markedly different kinds of beer.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, it just shows probably, at least I think it shows there's such a different taste out there that people can have. I mean, just radically different tasting beers.
A lot of that surprised, we can make beer that we think is good, but then people don't drink it. So, I mean, the Ferryman we put out, and we'll see how it does seasonally in the winter, but people wanted that all year. So that became our all-year stout beer. And I'm just amazed locally how many people like stouts. I just thought that would be a hard sell, and we have focused on stouts because the Mansfield water is actually pretty good when you filter it. It's a harder water, but it's perfect for stout beer. So that's why our portfolio is so diverse. I'm trying to do as many different styles as I can, not really focusing on IPAs or stouts. Some breweries focus on certain styles, but we do not. We try to do everything that we can as well as we can.
Well, how do you guys decide to marry? Which comes first? Do you make the beer and then someone comes up with a name for it? Or is there a name and then you say, okay, I'll make a flavor that matches that? Because, I mean, you guys obviously have some names that tie to the fact that you're operating out of a former mortuary, but you've also got beers that tie into the community, whether it's the prison, former prison, things like that. So which comes first, the flavor or the name?
I would say the beer style comes first. And it's that part, we're in the process right now of getting the 2025 production map finished, and there's some really fun things coming up for 2025. And there's a few beers that won't be returning in 2025, and that's okay because they might come back in 2026. But it's
Please tell me
it's
root.
Jane Doe.
Yeah.
No, I love the Jane Doe raspberry wheat.
Yeah,
That-
we're-
Okay, all right.
that's my favorite beer.
Jane is not going away.
Okay.
She's going to be around for a while.
Usually May, June, July. That's usually when
Yeah.
she's out.
She's
Yeah.
not on the cut list.
Rooftop's got to be there.
There's something light and Pilsnery coming back.
But-
We
but-
have not finalized the
All right.
Pilsner.
I'm gonna put an early. Oh, I'm getting a thumbs down from Doug. You're gonna make my wife very unhappy if there's no rooftop next summer.
There might be something different, and
All right.
it might be rooftop might come in, but there might be something different that comes in as well.
Exactly.
I think some of the things we did a survey earlier this year, and it was really kind of the data was kind of surprising. And I sat on a conversation last week as well, and they asked what they thought the biggest trending beer was coming up, and they mentioned coffee, and I hadn't, that was one of the top things that people requested were more coffee beers, not more hazy IPAs and not more, unfortunately, saisons, because I love a good saison. And but that wasn't a huge request. But coffee beers were the ones that were the largest number of people of what they wanted.
But you said the names. Names come second. But anytime I hear a good potential name, I have a notepad in my phone, and so I've got a list of scary names. We have 3 themes. Try to remember them. We have themes related to the Phoenix and mythology. We have local names, and we have names associated with the mortuary or death or something like. So we try to stick with those 3 themes.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them have stuck to that, but that's kind of where we start.
Yeah, the anniversary beers are usually kind of
Fun names.
just fun off the wall stuff. That list, by the way, has a lot of rejected names on it.
Well,
that
I
come
know
back with every time it gets pulled back out, they
marketing's
still
like,
get
no.
rejected.
That'd be another whole half hour
That would
of
be
Yeah, we
discussion.
that. So, Richie, I'm sorry, we're probably not going to have like the Richie beer at the Phoenix. Put
Mine
that
would
away.
probably be like a habanero mix, like a little fruity, something
Yeah.
like a little spicy, probably.
that.
If you ever
Yeah.
want to
Niche-
try
niche
that,
market.
Niche.
I'll come
You-
in and you
you-
can taste test.
You remain a very niche market, Richie. I'm just going to say that.
We get a lot of name requests from our customers. We have someone who comes in. He's like, "I got a great name for you." I go, "What is it?" He goes, "How about you name a beer Autopsy?" I'm like, "I'll put it on my list. I don't know that it's going to make the cut." And he was like, "Oh, you got to do that." I'm like, so we get a lot of, and then our employees, we get requests, or we put out a message. What kind of names you have for this beer that we got coming out, and we'll see what they come up with as well.
They come up with some great names.
Have
and
you
a lot
ever-
of thought.
Have you ever created one called Toe Tag?
We have.
Yes.
Okay.
And you-
well, they probably
You didn't know
It's a-
that?
it's a
I did not
Belgian-
know that.
Yeah, we have a toe
It's a
tag.
Belgian triple. It's,
All
an,
right.
it's an award winner as well.
Well, that's probably
Well
why,
done.
'cause the triples aren't something I should ever do. So that's probably why I don't remember that. All right. Here's a quick question. You only get, and you each answer this, and you can't steal off of each other. You can each get only one of your own craft beers to drink for the rest of time. Which one are you choosing?
For all time?
For all time, you can only ever drink this one. So you got to choose wisely.
That's going to cause some pause, Carl. I can't even, what people ask, what's your favorite beer? And I usually say the next one or the one in my hand,
Okay.
the one in front of me. So, I
Well,
mean,
see,
I would,
people ask me my favorite. I usually say free. I mean,
yeah,
that's-
free
yeah.
or redemption.
Yeah, or redemption. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could get free redemption, I think now we're talking. But
I would have to say a pale ale, probably the 419, just because it's not too strong. It's a balanced beer. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with that, the 419 pale ale.
all right, Carmen.
Well, oh gosh, this is really tough because
Well,
I'm the one that likes to go get a flight or two when I go places so I can try all the beers. Not all of them, but try a lot of different styles.
See, what while you're thinking about that, Duncan, we could do like a worst beer flight ever. You'd have like Top Hat,
Okay.
Stroh's, Hams,
Right.
and Hudipole.
Okay.
Just have like a
And
really
just see what's the worst, not the
Hudipole.
best.
yeah.
I
Just
see.
Any kind of
yeah.
a fun
Foodie's not
event, just
bad.
like
Wow, that's-
trash beer.
That's
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
see what it
It's not
doesn't
bad.
pair with
Yeah.
food. Oh, it
Yeah.
definitely doesn't go with the cheese.
No, it doesn't
Okay.
go with really anything at all. It goes with cold pizza at 4 a.m.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's what that goes with. All right, Carmen, I've stalled as long as I can to give you more time.
I guess
Pick
I'll
one.
go with I guess I'll go with our. I'm going to go with something different. I'm going to go with our Tropic Plunder. We did a one-time beer with that, and it had pineapple and orange and coconut, and it was fantastic if you dropped a shot of rum in it because it tasted like a cocktail, and then it was fantastic without it. It was just lightly tart. So
That's a good one.
All right. Now, we're gonna end with something that today we're going to call quick shots. No chasers, just the shots. So you got to knock them back. There's no wrong answers. It's just your opinions, but you only get like 5 seconds to come up with an answer. Otherwise, you're going to hear this really official buzzer sound. It's going to go like, okay? Mm-hmm. So there are no wrong answers. It's just your opinion. You just got to go quick.
Just the PG rated portion of the show?
Yeah, exactly. Or you could go even a hard R if you'd like at this point. But I'm going to alternate back and forth. You're just going to get like 3 questions. So, okay. Are you ready?
No. Yes.
Okay, good. That's a good start. Duncan, what's the coolest looking can Carmen has ever created?
The Santa Muerte, but I think it was only in a bottle. So there you go.
Right. Carmen, what's the best beer Duncan has ever developed?
Ferryman.
Duncan, if you could not be a brewmaster, what would you be doing today?
I'd be the mayor of Mansfield.
Carmen, which is more frustrating, teaching art in high school or managing your husband?
Pass.
You're not really in the spirit yet, Carmen, but we'll come back to that one. Duncan, fill in the blank. You can't include any of your own, but the best craft beer ever made is?
How about the Voodoo Daddy from Voodoo Brewing?
I like that one. Carmen, what is the best painting ever created? And you can't say, come on.
Gustav Klimt's The Kiss.
All right, well, very good. Good job, guys. Well done. You made it through the shots round, so thank you very much. And my thanks to both of you for coming in today and making this such a great and fun show. Happy brewing and happy holidays.